Holli Levitsky, Director of Jewish Studies at LMU and Associate Professor of English at LMU. Professor Holli Levitsky sits on a bench near the entrance to Auschwitz. She seems to be listening to voices we cannot hear. Gradually, the voice becomes audible. It is Rudolf Hess, reading from the transcript of his statement given at the Nuremberg war crime trials in 1946.
I was appointed commandant at Auschwitz and chief inspector of the camps and worked to improve the efficiency of the extermination centers. I called me a true pioneer in this area. At Auschwitz, the gassing was carried out in the detention cells of Block 11. Protected by a gas mask, I watched the killing myself. In the crowded cells, death came instantaneously the moment Diplom B was thrown in. A short, almost muffled cry, and it was all over. I must admit to set my mind at rest. Now we had the gas, and we had established a procedure. What brings you to Auschwitz, mein Fräulein?
Frau, or doctor. I'm here with my students.
But Auschwitz is not a school, it was a work camp.
Oh, more precisely than a death camp.
But you are Jewish.
So, you are German.
It was a long time ago.
I'm thinking that poems from the other world say nothing about homeland. Mothers, fathers, brothers are silent about Auschwitz, are like trees petrified. I still write poems.
So you are also a poet?
I'm a teacher. That was Rose's.
A poem?
Yes. He was a soldier in the Polish underground, and his brother was executed by the Gestapo in 1944, but he's still alive.
We all have our troubles, our stories.
Well, the stories are vital. There's a lot of pain there, and there's a lot of violence to tell the story, to hear it generation to generation. There's comfort in that, meaning.
It's tiring.
It's survival. I teach a writing class where I partner writing students with survivors, and the students help the survivors write their autobiographies. I believe we learn and teach through our faith and through an imperative to serve, both very deeply held Jewish and Catholic values.
Religion is tiring.
Well, values certainly exist exclusive of religion, but faith enlivens a value system. A spirit should know that.
Akademische. You love your work. Arbeit macht frei.
I love teaching. In fact, I teach these courses on the Holocaust regularly. I was introduced to Bill Elbrin, the president of the 1939 Club. Bill is a second-generation child of Holocaust survivors, a very successful lawyer in Century City, and he uses all the energy and resources he has to contribute to learning about the Holocaust. He helped fund a chair of Holocaust Studies at UCLA, which is the first chair in Holocaust Studies in the world. And I was envisioning what we could do at my university, LMU, and I brought Bill to a final session of my Holocaust class.
Holocaust class? How does one make a Holocaust?
Well, tragically, there are many answers to that question, though you're being facetious. Anyway, at the end of every class on the Holocaust, the students embark on a culminating creative project. I encourage them to take some skill they already have, some gifts, some talents, and find a text from class that we read that was very meaningful to them, and find some way to translate their response into this other medium. Some students were showing sculpture or collage they'd made or reading poems, and one student performed an exquisite contemporary dance. I invited Bill Elbrin. Now, Bill is not a man who cries easily, but by the end of it, he was wiping some moisture from his eyes, and he said, "Holly, I'm very impressed, but why weren't survivors here to see this? Exactly what you're doing, what the students are doing is what survivors need. Survivors want to know that students are learning, that they understand what the history meant to the people who experienced it."
Survivor stories. Some did not survive it. I estimate at least 2.5 million victims were executed and another 500,000 succumbed to starvation and disease.
Millions more in other camps, but you know that. We will not forget it. When I met Bill, I didn't know any survivors. Bill said, "Holly, you leave that to me. I will find a way." And together we created an annual Kristallnacht event. 2013 will be our 7th year. It's a commemoration of Kristallnacht, what historians know as the beginning of the Holocaust, which happened November 8th and 9th, 1938, and an educational program. We combined a memorial for the survivors and their families with an education side so that LMU students, faculty, and people in the community could come and learn about the Holocaust. I got to know many survivors. I went to their homes, and before long, they were my adoptive parents. And I was their adoptive daughter. And our students were their adoptive grandchildren. Every year, Kristallnacht has brought together between 250 and 300 people. Survivors in the community, their families, many students. Well, students come and they leave transformed by the experience. The first truly big event of the Evolving Jewish Studies program was to bring Elie Wiesel to LMU in 2007. He was treated like a rock star. We turned away over 1,000 people.
1,000 people?
There were 3,000 who saw him.
I know of this man. What do you hope to accomplish by bringing him to your students in Jewish studies? Why study the Jews?
You ask that question? Yes, I love the work. I can't imagine a better job. I literally can't. But the service is that kind of middle place between the personal and the professional. A teacher's life is very mission-driven. The service and reconciliation has really come about for me in the work of bringing students and survivors together. I also developed a study abroad program for Jewish studies. And every other year, we go to Poland so that the students could go on site and have an engaged learning experience, and that has been profound. It was about reconciliation. We organized a group of Polish students in Poland to work with my American students to learn about the Holocaust from each other's point of view. We meet for a long day in July in Poland, but almost throughout an entire year of convocations and interactions through email and other forms of new media. The Polish students talk with the American students, my American students. They get to know each other a little bit. And they're also reading the same collection of short stories written by Joe Lumer, a Polish child of survivors. All of his Polish stories take place in a little village called T. It could be any village. The stories take place from 1915 to 1939, which is when Poland was invaded by Germany. There are Jewish and non-Jewish characters, and each story focuses on some interaction between them. Most of the book borders on the violent, not always physically violent, but anti-Semitism and prejudice. One story is from the point of view of a young Jewish man who has just converted to Catholicism to please his Catholic girlfriend, but she tells him, "You fool, I loved you because you were a Jew." So we have these tricky interactions.
Yeah, no doubt, very tricky, as you say. Mutual understanding, cultural respect, a fool's paradise.
Anyway, so I have my American students read the story. The author, Lumer, donates dozens of copies of his book, and on our first trip, he met with us and read us one of the stories from his book. It was very moving. passed away before we could meet with him the following year. Anyway, we have a beautiful kind of medieval style room in Town Square in Krakow. All the Polish and American students come in and meet face to face for the first time. I lecture on the history of Jews in Poland. I do that to discover what the Polish students know, and it's shocking how little. And some of what they know is simply wrong. Most of them don't know there were 1 million Jews here in Poland before the war. They don't know that there were whole villages that were Jewish. The American students are equally stunned because it's their first real experience with the otherness of this population, this world, these other people, Poles, who look like them and are the same age as them and are university educated. But they find that their American education has provided much more on Holocaust history than the Polish education has. I hope both groups of students realize that that same sort of lack of knowledge of one another is partly responsible for what was allowed to happen back then. Usually the realization occurs without us having to slam it in their faces. Now, I feel like that's what you have to do. We talk about the stories, about their culture and history, about the interactions between Jews and non-Jews in Poland. Student-to-student reconciliation. One seeing the other through the other's eyes. Lumen, the author. I have stacks of books and boxes in my office right now in the middle of the floor, and they're his. His widow donated his entire library to me. Lumer was born in a displaced persons camp. And he died last year at age 62. He and his wife Esther, who was my dear friend, were in Argentina vacationing. And they found his body in the canal. Like so many survivors and their children, he was being chased by phantoms and was simply out-chased.
Let me touch. I'm tired.
We will not sit here. You know, reconciliation is not the same as forgiveness. Forgiveness, in my tradition, is not about blanketly saying someone did something wrong or someone did something terrible and enough time has passed. Or that I have a big heart and everything's okay now. Reconciliation, for me, means really facing up to some very hard facts, confronting those facts or issues, and then moving beyond them. It starts in conversation and engagement with those with whom you want to be reconciled, but from there it needs to be a moving beyond together. I want to make sure I'm clear. I don't think reconciliation means resolution. I don't think it means forgiveness. I think for our hearts to be able to grow and not get smaller and more restrictive and let fewer people in, you have to learn to reconcile. Your heart has to get bigger and bigger. You can't keep bad things locked in. So for me, it's about facing and confronting painful issues, conversing with them and engaging with them, and then moving on to new and creative forms of connection. In this vale of tears, I still write poems, leaving in them my tongue. Together with my entrails, I say goodbye. Move away. Slowly, you close the door. You should go now.
Tried by Polish authorities in 1947 and sentenced to death, Commandant Rudolf Hess is hung on a one-person gallows erected at the entrance of Auschwitz. Outside the gas chambers, he perfected.
Holli Levitsky.
expression of our discussion. Andrea, thank you for your amazing performance. Judith, thank you for the award of the center. Thank you so much for creating this. My friends and family for coming today, thank you. I really want to accept this on behalf of the survivors. More importantly, the people who didn't survive. And sorry, I knew I was going to cry, so I'm really going to keep it short. But for those who didn't survive the Holocaust, this is really for them. Thank you, Bill and Rosemary, also for coming, and Esther.